Imagine this. A brand new adventure bike comes into the US market, claiming to be lighter, faster, and cheaper than the Yamaha Ténéré 700, a bike that has dominated the midweight adventure category for years. Now ask yourself, could a motorcycle made by a relatively new Chinese brand really threaten the reign of one of the most trusted names in the segment? That's exactly the question raised by the new Kove 800X Pro. Let's put it into perspective. The Kove 800X Pro comes with a parallel twin engine producing 94.5 horsepower at 9,000 RPM and 59 lb-ft of torque at 7,500 RPM, paired with a 6-speed gearbox and a slipper clutch. What makes eyebrows rise is its weight, only 419 pounds wet, 190 kg. For comparison, the Yamaha Ténéré 700 tips the scale at around 452 pounds with 72 horsepower. KTM's 790 Adventure brings 95 horsepower but weighs about 464 pounds. Right there you see the numbers. Same power as KTM, lighter weight than Yamaha, and potentially a sharper tool for both highway and dirt. And here's the kicker. The expected US price point is around $10,500 to $11,000. Depending on dealer setup, that's thousands less than KTM's mid-range adventure lineup and still below the Yamaha, which in 2025 sits at about $10,099 MSRP. A lighter bike with more horsepower and priced to undercut the big players. That's the bait Kove is putting on the table. But can they deliver more than just numbers on a spec sheet? Because here's the real problem. American riders don't just buy a motorcycle for horsepower and weight figures. They buy it for reliability, long-term dealer support, and proven durability on cross-country adventures. The Ténéré 700 has built its reputation with owners riding it coast to coast and even through the backcountry discovery routes. KTM's adventure lineup has earned trust, even with its quirks, because it delivers race-inspired off-road capability. Kove, on the other hand, is still an unknown in this market. Yes, the brand shocked the world with its rally bikes at Dakar and made headlines with the Kove 450 Rally. But owning a rally-tested bike is not the same as trusting it for daily use or a 5,000-mile trip across the Rockies, so the real challenge is not whether the Kove 800X Pro looks good on paper, because it absolutely does. The challenge is whether American riders are willing to risk buying into a young brand from China in a segment where dependability means everything. And that's the conflict we'll explore in this video. Is the Kove 800X Pro a real contender for the adventure throne, or just a flashy newcomer destined to fade? In the next chapter, we'll dive into the performance and riding experience, how this bike actually feels on the road and off-road, and how it stacks up against its most direct rivals in real-world scenarios. That's where the truth really shows. Numbers look good on paper, but an adventure bike lives and dies by how it performs on the road, in the dirt, and everywhere in between. The Kove 800X Pro carries a 799cc parallel twin, liquid-cooled, producing nearly 95 horsepower. On the street, this puts it right on par with the KTM 790 Adventure and a clear step above the Yamaha Ténéré 700's 72 horsepower and 68 Nm of torque. Riders who demand highway confidence and overtaking power will notice immediately this isn't a sluggish midweight. It pulls hard, especially once you pass the 5,000 RPM mark, where the engine finds its sweet spot. But here's the flip side. At low RPM, the Kove shows its rough edges. The throttle response at slow speeds is abrupt, and the fuel injection tuning isn't as refined as what we find on the Yamaha or KTM. In technical off-road sections, that can make it tricky to modulate throttle without upsetting traction. American riders who are used to smooth low-end torque on the Ténéré may find this frustrating. Now let's talk about weight and handling. At 419 pounds wet, the Kove is one of the lightest in the category. To put this in context, the KTM 890 Adventure R sits closer to 464 pounds. The Aprilia Tuareg 660 weighs about 450 pounds, and even the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE comes in at 507 pounds. That means the Kove doesn't just beat most rivals in horsepower to weight ratio. It also feels more agile when flicking through corners or maneuvering in rocky terrain. Riders who complain about the V-Strom's heft will immediately appreciate how nimble the Kove feels. suspension is another strong point. The bike is fitted with fully adjustable KYB units, 240mm of travel up front and 220mm at the rear. That's serious rally spec hardware, rivaling KTM's WP suspension in capability. On rocky fire roads or rutted trails, the Kove keeps composure, soaking up hits without punishing the rider. Out of the box, it's a far more capable off-road machine than the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE and arguably even the Aprilia Tuareg. However, KTM still holds the crown for suspension finesse, especially when pushed to the extreme. Brakes tell another story. Dual 310mm discs up front provide strong stopping power, but fade creeps in under heavy use, a weakness compared to Brembo-equipped KTM and Aprilia setups. The rear brake, however, stays consistent and easy to modulate, which matters when descending loose trails. Ergonomics are surprisingly good. Seat height is 34.4 inches, almost identical to the Ténéré and Tuareg. Standing on the pegs feels natural, with a slim midsection that allows good movement off-road. The cockpit is dominated by a 7-inch vertical TFT display, rally style, with full smartphone connectivity. That's a modern touch the Ténéré can't match, and something US buyers will value. Add in USB-A and USB-C charging ports, skid plate crash bars, and a luggage rack as standard equipment, features that other brands usually sell as expensive add-ons. But let's not ignore the elephant in the room: brand trust. Riders in the US know Yamaha, KTM, Suzuki, and even Aprilia. They know what kind of aftermarket support, parts availability, and resale value to expect. Kove doesn't yet have a proven dealer network or long-term reliability record here. Even with a competitive price projected around $10,500 to $11,000, many riders will hesitate, thinking about how easy it will be to find parts in a few years, or whether they can rely on it for a 2,000-mile trip into the wilderness. That's the conflict. The Kove 800X Pro rides and performs like a true contender. It challenges the benchmark bikes with real power, excellent suspension, and an aggressive price. But adventure riders in America value reliability and support as much as performance. The question is whether Kove can build that confidence fast enough to earn a slice of this fiercely loyal market. In the final chapter, we'll explore the resolution, what this bike really means for the US adventure market, who should actually consider buying it, and whether it has what it takes to dethrone the Ténéré 700. So after all the excitement, the specs, and the comparisons, the big question remains: is the Kove 800X Pro ready to take the crown in the US midweight adventure segment? On paper, the numbers scream yes. A 94.5 HP twin-cylinder, 419 pounds wet weight, and rally-level suspension travel. That's a combination that most of its rivals simply can't match. Add to this the projected price tag around $10,500 to $11,000, and you've got a motorcycle that undercuts KTM and Suzuki while matching or even surpassing their performance. Yamaha's Ténéré 700 has been the gold standard for affordability and dependability. But here comes a lighter, more powerful machine that's just as affordable. If this were only a numbers game, the conversation would be over. But the American market isn't moved only by numbers. Riders here think in terms of trust. They want a bike that can carry them from Colorado's passes to Utah's deserts, from Alaska's gravel highways to the forests of Maine, without leaving them stranded or waiting weeks for parts. And this is where the Kove 800X Pro still has to prove itself. Kove has demonstrated capability on the world stage. Their rally machines completed Dakar, one of the toughest endurance races on the planet. That proves engineering competence. Yet Dakar isn't daily life. Owning a bike in the US means access to dealer service, warranty coverage, aftermarket support, and a community of riders sharing solutions and experiences. Yamaha and KTM enjoy all of that. Kove is starting from zero. For many adventure riders, that's a deal breaker. So who is this bike really for? If you're a rider looking for maximum performance per dollar, if you're excited about trying something new, if you value suspension and agility above brand loyalty, the Kove 800X Pro is worth serious consideration. It could be the perfect machine for someone who wants a capable off-road explorer without paying KTM prices. It's also going to attract riders who are tired of waiting for Yamaha to update the Ténéré with more power and modern electronics. For them, the Kove feels like a breath of fresh air. On the other hand, if you are planning a 6,000-mile trip to Alaska, or if you want a bike with guaranteed nationwide dealer support and proven resale value, the Ténéré 700 or KTM 890 Adventure still hold the safer cards. Reliability is currency in the US adventure scene, and Kove still needs to build its reputation here. The bigger picture is this. Whether or not the 800X Pro dethrones the Ténéré immediately, it represents a shift. A young Chinese brand has managed to produce a bike that genuinely competes with, and in some areas beats, the giants of this segment. That's a message the entire industry should take seriously. For American riders, it means more choice, more competition, and potentially better value across the board. So, is the Kove 800X Pro the new queen of adventure bikes? Not yet. But it has entered the game swinging hard, and that alone makes it one of the most important motorcycles of 2025. The throne may still belong to Yamaha, but Kove has shown it's not untouchable. And if the brand proves itself in the coming years, the midweight adventure landscape in the US could change forever.